welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at Millennium, episode 4 of season 7. Airing November 28th, 1999, Millennium follows Mulder and Scully as they must stop a zombie apocalypse right at the turn of the new millennium. Oh, and Frank Black stops by to say hello or something. Alright, so Millennium opens up on December 21st, 1999. We've got a nice little funeral going on, which is always fun. This guy, Mark Johnson, said he worked with the deceased for a short time, and I guess they must have been pretty close because he decides to hang around way after the funeral is over. Oh, I guess this was a closed casket service? How close were these guys exactly? Great, we've got ourselves another Donnie Pfaster situation, don't we? Oh, gross, he has no idea where that's been. I'm not sure why he gives a dead guy a phone. It's not like the dead know how to use technology.
Come to the hospital.
Show me right there!
Also, are we sure this guy is dead? Okay, so can someone explain why Mark had to strip down in order to hand a dead man a phone? It's less believable that a 90s cell phone worked underground than it is a dead man using one. For some reason, Scully is called in to investigate what seems to be a simple grave robbing. My favorite part though is Mulder spreading rumors that a dead man rose from his grave. I mean, come on Mulder, zombies, really? Oh, it's so stupid. Look how massive this hole is though, that would have taken Mark all night to dig up. Strangely, some of the finger and handprints match the one on the outside of the coffin and on the headstone, which is weird. And I guess Mulder and Scully are involved because the dead man was FBI. It seems he took his own life, but the question is why?
Well, only that I don't think it was grave robbery per se. It was necromancy.
I love how the second he mentions it wasn't a grave robbing, Scully gives her, shit, here we go again. How does anyone in the FBI take what he says and not immediately start laughing?
He may also desire to wear the clothes of the dead man and create a bond between them.
Well, at least that explains why Mark decided to strip down in front of a dead man. Scully does her usual, it was likely a ritual of some kind, but even if it was, why would a seemingly normal retired FBI agent be involved in some strange necromancy plot? Skinner pulls Mulder and Scully aside because a magic circle that was placed around the gravesite looks an awful lot like the call sign of the Millennium Group, a group of former FBI who pretended to be consultants for law enforcement, but were really a cult preparing for the biblical prophecy that the year 2000 would bring about the end of the world. So you know, real well-adjusted guys. Now somehow the group just randomly dissolved a few months ago, but according to Skinner there have been more of these grave robbings, and he believes the Millennium Group is somehow involved. I'm also surprised Mulder doesn't become suspicious of Scully, considering she does have the Ouroboros tattooed on her lower back. The part that I find kind of sketchy is Skinner wants Mulder and Scully to keep this thing quiet, since it's so closely tied to the FBI. But I don't know, I think the public deserves to know when the people who are supposed to protect them are basically doing the exact opposite. Mulder and Scully head to a psychiatric hospital for a little help with their case, because I mean, when you have an Avengers level threat, you're gonna need an Avengers level team.
Frank Black? My name is Fox Mulder. This is my partner, Dan Scully. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Okay, so I'm gonna fangirl for a second, but after having just recently gone through Millennium for the first time, despite owning the DVDs for what feels like 2 decades, having these 3 characters interact on screen is such a great moment. Mulder lays out some photos asking Frank if he recognizes any of these men, to which he says he does, which is funny because I don't. None of these guys ever appeared on the show. Mulder asks if Frank can take a look at the case files and he refuses. I can't exactly blame him considering everything he's been through, but Mulder does point out that the Millennium is the day after tomorrow, and that's kind of a big deal for the Millennium Group. I mean, it is in their name.
It's 1st and 18. Just let me watch this game in peace.
It's 3rd and 10, Notre Dame.
Happy New Year.
I know Frank's been through the ringer, but what's with the obvious lies? Anywho, Mark's dealing with a flat tire when a random police officer shows up. Sure would suck if he checked in the back of the truck. Don't worry about Mark though, he brought his pocket salt. Mulder and Scully arrive on the scene, and Mulder knows the necromancer was there, because only necromancers carry pocket salt. Well, either that or it was one of those guys that sell the giant pretzels.
I've got 2 things to say to you. One is that his previous circles were made of blood, not salt.
I really thought she was about to tell him to suck it. I mean, it was 1999 after all. One of the police find the body buried in the ground with a lovely little note in his mouth.
I am he that liveth and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. And have the keys of hell and of death.
Thankfully, one of the deputies did his Sunday school studies and notes that it comes from the book of Revelations, chapter 1, verse 18, which is my favorite. Mulder quickly realizes that Frank was trying to help him. He just didn't want anyone to know. See, Frank is in a bit of a custody battle over his daughter with his deceased wife's parents. His way of proving that he was no longer obsessed with doomsday cults like the Millennium Group was to check himself into a psychiatric hospital and show that he is fit to be a father. Mulder assures Frank no one will know about this, so Frank decides to help. Frank explains that these 4 men were going to take their own lives, come back as I guess representations of the 4 horsemen, and bring with them the dead rising from their graves. Basically, a zombie apocalypse. What's interesting is the guy raising these zombies isn't even part of the Millennium Group. He's just a nutjob who believes he's doing God's work. Mulder and Scully decide to split up, which is always the right thing to do in a situation featuring zombies. Scully's going to the morgue because they believe their necromancer may show up there, and Mulder is going to look around the area because he believes the necromancer's home is fairly close by.
Don't let anybody remove the staples from the deputy's mouth, okay? Please, just humor me.
Does nobody listen around here? The pathologist begins removing the salt from the zombie's mouth, but the way she holds the spoon has always bothered me for some reason, and I don't know why. The woman gets a message from Scully telling her not to start the autopsy, but I think it's a little too late for that. Scully arrives to find the woman missing and a nice trail of blood. I'm sure she's fine though, it's not like there's a zombie on the loose. The head, Scully? Aim for the head. I know you've seen a zombie movie or two. This means Scully's dead, right?
Sir?
Oh, nice try, X-Files. This isn't the first time you tried to fake us out with a dead Scully. Lucky for Scully, the necromancer shot the zombie in the head. Not because he was trying to save her. I think he was just trying to cover up his mistake. Meanwhile, Mulder finds what looks to be like an end-of-the-world compound. The sort of thing you'd want in case of a random zombie apocalypse. You know this is the right place because Mulder also doesn't have cell phone reception, which is a convenient way of letting us know he's in trouble. I like that Mark writes his name on his trash can lid, as if someone is going to randomly come to his house in the middle of nowhere and steal it. I think he might be a bit paranoid. A 50-pound bag of salt? Only a necromancer would have salt. Mulder breaks into his place, assuring that if he's found the right guy, he'll get off thanks to a technicality. Mulder discovers a spooky basement, which, as we all know, is the best place to hide zombies. Okay, maybe breaking into a necromancer's home without backup probably wasn't the best idea. With time running out and Mulder nowhere to be found, Scully speaks to Frank for help. She tells him about her zombie encounter, which honestly isn't the craziest thing he's seen. Frank tells Scully that he's not gonna help her. However, the second she turns her back, he's talking to Octavia Spencer and telling her it's time he leaves. Alright, so Mulder's a little banged up, but hey, at least he had some pocket salt.
Who's there? It's me. You came.
Well, if it wasn't Mr. I'm not gonna help. Though the necromancer thinks he's there to be the 4th zombie, since Mulder did kill one of them. The issue though is Frank was never a member of the Millennium Group. He was a consultant and a high-profile candidate, but he never actually joined, so how would his death help bring about the end of the world? Regardless, Mark seems pretty happy that Frank came, because he believes Frank was always intended to be the 4th. Unfortunately for him, Frank was the one who told Mulder about this place, and he intends to put a stop to it once and for all. Mark still believes that Frank will do the right thing and hands him a gun, which was pretty dumb because Frank just turns it on him. This guy must have really pissed Frank off, because he almost never uses a gun. Alright, so he doesn't actually shoot the guy, but he is about to shoot some zombies. While this is going on, you've also got Scully, who through voodoo magic is told where to find Mulder and Frank. Alright, maybe it was phone tracking, but it's kind of like voodoo. Frank enters the basement and Mulder tells him the zombies are hiding. Like, what are they playing, hide and go seek? This is what was supposed to bring about the end of the world? Frank gets taken down by another zombie, but he's got to keep his fingers away from the thing's mouth. Mulder comes in with the save, but the gun is now out of ammo. Clearly these two grown men are no match for one zombie. It's okay, boys, you've got Scully coming in with the save. She didn't know it was a zombie though. She just saw someone getting too close to Mulder. At the hospital, the Times Square ball is just about ready to drop when Scully has a little surprise for Frank.
Hi, Daddy!
Hey, little one. Oh, I miss you, sweetheart.
I missed you too, Daddy.
Alright, so does this mean he now has custody? Because I sure hope so. Unfortunately, this is the last time we ever see Frank Black. Sure would suck if this moment were overshadowed by some fan service. Oh, for fuck's sake, X-Files. Millennium is an episode that I always enjoyed simply because it's got zombies and Lance Henriksen. I've been a big fan of Lance since I was a kid, so him being on the show was always a real treat. However, since finally watching the Millennium series, my feelings on this episode are more mixed. While it's great to see Frank Black, hear pieces of the score, and see what's left of the Millennium Group, the whole thing feels a bit shallow. When the show ended, Frank and Jordan were on the run from the group, but now all of a sudden the group has seemingly dissolved for no reason, and all that remains are a few members taking their own lives so they can turn into zombies? If you truly wanted to bring Frank Black back into the fold, then I think this episode should have been treated more like a Millennium episode than an X-Files episode. It should have been darker, should have made use of Frank's gift, and honestly should have been a two-parter. The problem though is the episode was never intended to give closure to Frank Black and his journey. It was more like, hey, remember Frank Black? Well, here he is for an episode. And while that works fine for the X-Files, I guess, it doesn't really do anything for Millennium. As Frank Spotnitz put it, we love the idea of bringing Frank Black onto the X-Files so that he could see New Year's Eve 1999 change to New Year's Day 2000. But it was so hard because we were dealing with the mythology of the X-Files, the heroes of Mulder and Scully, the mythology of Millennium. The question was, how do you serve all those conflicting masters? The answer is, you don't. If you really wanted to do a crossover episode, you make Millennium's story the focal point, and have Mulder and Scully assist Frank in finally ending them once and for all. Having the group basically fall apart behind the scenes is kind of lame, honestly. Long before Millennium's 3-season run would come to an end, there had actually been talks about crossing both franchises over. Now, you could technically say they did with the episode Jose Chung's Doomsday Defense, which featured the same character from the X-Files episode Jose Chung's from Outer Space, but Jose Chung feels like such a cartoon character that it's hard to take anything that happens as fact. Now, the original pitch wasn't to wrap up Millennium, but it was more to see what would happen if Frank Black came into Mulder and Scully's world. Tapped to figure this out were Frank Spotnitz and Vince Gilligan. Their idea for the story was to kill off the remaining members of the Millennium Group and have them come back as the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, while also briefly explaining to the X-Files fanbase what the Millennium Group is and why they should care about Frank Black. On top of this, they also wanted to include fears of the upcoming millennium. Many people thought the year 2000 would bring about the end of the world. Well, everyone except for Vince Gilligan, who thought the whole thing was complete nonsense. In the run-up to the turn of the year, all these so-called experts were on every news outlet you could find, talking about how once the clock ticked over to 2000, suddenly, computers everywhere would go dead and lock up. Planes would fall out of the sky, satellites would rocket to Earth, and buildings would explode. I am proud to say I never bought into any of that Y2K BS for a minute. Despite the episode being about the Millennium Group, the main responsibility of the writers was to serve the X-Files fans first and foremost. They didn't want to bring anything over from Millennium that would be too confusing for X-Files fans, or do anything that would make Millennium fans feel like they were cheated. However, despite their best efforts, I do feel like the Millennium fans were cheated, and so does its star Lance Henriksen. While Lance was appreciative and happy to be a part of the X-Files, he wasn't really happy with how they capped off Millennium. In an interview with Cult Times, Lance said, "I gotta tell you, man, the way I got pitched this by Chris Carter, the reason I went on the X-Files, he said to me, this is gonna be closure for Millennium. And I went, oh god, great. Chris, I can't wait to read the script. So the day I got to the set to do the show, I get the script and I'm facing zombies? Now what has that got to do with the closing of Millennium? Absolutely nothing. And I thought that's closure for Millennium? Alright. I thought they're gonna give dignity to Millennium, and here comes a show on the X-Files to give it dignity, and it became zombies. I went, oh shit, we're going down in flames. I have to laugh about it, man, but you get sold the bill of goods. If somebody says to you this is a tribute to something, you're gonna want to believe it, and so you go, oh good, okay. And then when you get there, it's in a taste and style that you're not interested in. It's pretty funny. Now it's hysterical. Lance even had hope that he'd return in a rumored X-Files movie. I hear they're gonna do an X-Files movie, and I think they'd be insane not to bring Frank Black into it. Without zombies. And speaking of the zombie aspect, the entire idea for the episode actually came from a scrapped concept about a remake of Night of the Living Dead, to be written by Stephen King and directed by George A. Romero. Now, I don't exactly know how you remake Night of the Living Dead in the X-Files. I mean, is it going to have Barbara? Or Ben? Will the entire thing just be a bottle episode taking place inside a farmhouse while zombies try to break their way inside? It's an interesting idea, especially with Stephen King and George Romero working on it, but instead we got a handful of zombies and one sad Frank Black. Probably the worst thing to come from this episode was the kiss. I mean, it just completely overshadowed everything else that came before it. Fans weren't talking about Frank Black, they were talking about the kiss, and we can thank writer John Sheban for that one. Apparently during their story sessions, Sheban suggested that they cap off the episode with Mulder and Scully kissing. They had been building up to a kiss for 7 seasons, nearly having one in the movie. There was one in Triangle, but that was a dream, so it doesn't count. But they figured kissing was just something people did on New Year's, and it didn't necessarily mean it was romantic. I mean, if you're not kissing the homies on New Year's, are you even homies?
Dude.
As an X-Files fan, I think the episode is a fine little zombie outing that I would give a 7. But as someone who really enjoyed Millennium, I would give it a 6. It's great that Frank was on screen, I love the use of the theme music, but the zombie apocalypse was kind of lame for a story that was supposed to wrap up Millennium. Up next, things get a little superhero-y, as Mulder and Scully basically have to investigate the Flash in the episode Rush. So what do you think about Millennium? Let me know down in the comments. Anyways, that's all for today. I hope you're doing well and stay spooky.
As the Millennium nears,
He was dead, then somehow he wasn't.
only one man
Frank Black?
can stop the coming apocalypse.
The Millennium Group believed that time was upon us.
Lance Henriksen guest stars.
Look out!
The X-Files, an all-new episode, Sunday at 9, 8 central on Fox.
Huge thanks to all my channel members, you're the real MVPs of the Spooky Squad. Your support helps keep the lights flickering and the monsters fed. If you'd like to join up and help support the channel, check out the join button below. But no pressure, just watching and liking helps a ton too.